I'm going to welcome everybody to the last session of our Flee at Home. It's been quite a ride because we organized it pretty quickly, but it's been really inspiring and energizing to see the community come together in times like the current complexity with COVID. And we have seen it as a great opportunity to connect, have conversations that that we think are meaningful and significant for the ecosystem, and to take the chance to get speakers like Maria Cavalcanti that due to travel and a lot of commitments, it's not always easy to get everybody in the same space. So one of the upsides of the current situation is being able to have Maria Cavalcanti with us. So I would like to introduce our last speaker, the last session of Flee at Home. Thank you everybody for connecting and making this happen and to help us advance with the shared mission of catalyzing impact investing. And Maria Cavalcanti, she's the president and CEO of Mujer, and she's been empowering women for more than 25 years and working with businesses and other nonprofits across the US, Latin America, Western Europe, and India. And before that, she managed, she co-founded and was managing partner of First Impact Investing, and she also was strategy chief officer of Fundación Avina for a long time. So Maria, it's such a pleasure to have you here. She's going to talk to you about something very meaningful and insightful, and that I think as an ecosystem we can come together to see how we can contribute and work together. So Maria, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us for the last session of Flee.
Thank you, Maria. So it's really a pleasure to be here. The Flee is an event that has been in my heart from the very beginning. One of the prides in my career was to be one of the first contributors to put the Flee together and support new ventures to be able to get this type of forums for us to discuss how can we really make a long-lasting impact in our region. So I'm delighted to be here and very excited. And I think we have a lot to talk about, especially in this moment of crisis, and more specifically in this moment where Latin America is really entering this pandemic in ways that no other region has entered. But I'm going to take a step back, and I'm going to invite you all to have a conversation. When I first thought about this topic for our discussion and really looking into, take a minute to look back and see what we have set up to do as impact investors in Latin America, and see if we have achieved what we wanted to do, and if it's time for us to do some course correction. I was thinking of literally bombarding everybody with data and looking at it. And I will do a little bit of that. But what I wanted to do, given the fact that we have a different format, and it's a format that allows us to have, as Maria said, work from a more intimate way, I wanted to invite all of you for a conversation. And as we take a look into the last, at least my first impact investment in Latin America was in 2008, and I was late. So I think that we would say, from a perspective of microfinance, of course, Latin America has been one of the first regions. We have been doing microfinance in Latin America for almost 50 years. There's about 40-something years. Mujer started about 30 years ago, and the region has been, if not the first, but among the first two more active regions in in microfinance. But when we look into impact investing, we look into a broader aspect. And I think that was in the early 2000s, mid 2005, 2006, we started really operating in Latin America from a perspective of looking into funds like Ignia that were starting at that time in Mexico. We were looking into Vox, started in Brazil, and seeing a lot of that space of people saying, yes, there is a space of for the market. Capital markets can play a role in transforming society, and we believe that there is a space for interaction with civil society and government in the business sector to really get the region to another level. So we're almost 15 years later, and I think it's time for us to see, did we get to where we wanted to go? And as we look in these last 15 years, I started very early on with a fund of fund and invested in the first impact invest funds of just about almost all the countries in Latin America. At that time, they were very small funds, were still very tied into looking at what kind of indicators were there, and also creating the language. The vocabulary was all very early on. Sometimes we called triple bottom result. We talked about double bottom result. We talked about all kinds of different until we settled after 2008 on impact investing due to a conference that was supported by the Rockefeller Foundation. But this is the very beginning. And at that time, I remember in a conference, actually at the FLE, saying at one point we're going to see $100 million investment in impact investing in Latin America. Well, today we have seen over $5 billion of investment in impact investing in Latin America. We have about 40 funds from Europe, US, and Latin America operating in the region. Just about every single investment in terms of vehicles and in terms of stage of the investment has been, and we have seed investors, we have angel investors, we have now a secondary market, which all very, it's all showing, well, there's all indications of a maturing industry in Latin America. And I think we as impact investors contributed to the maturity of the venture capital and the private equity industry in Latin America as a whole. And we very early on became part of the overall LAVICA group that we're looking in what are the best practice for investment in Latin America. So we see investments in all countries in Latin America. We see about 40 investors looking into different indicators, and some of them are not only social, but they're also on looking into the environmental as well. And then we see that broader investors have come to the table. We have Latin American family offices, we have international family offices, we have high net worth individuals, we see large corporate investors, we have corporate foundations getting together, we now have a whole network of funds, which we didn't really have that before, and we have asset managers that are specialized in impact investing working in Latin America. We see a participation, a much active participation of the multilateral investment funds working and committed to look at impact investing. Of course, they have already been working and putting capital in the region from a perspective of venture capital and private equity, but now we see the multilaterals looking into impact as well. And that is all very, very exciting. We see this global deployment of capital in Latin America. And from my perspective, what I wanted to see was a region that was really much more resilient. And as we looked today, we see that we haven't achieved that yet. And it's sobering to look to see Latin America before the COVID crisis, to tell you the truth, and see that we have very pernicious, persistent problems that we have not been able to address. We still have inequality, wealth inequality to a level that no other region experienced. We have gender-based violence that has become a pandemic in the last 5 years in the region. We have racism, we have classism, we have homophobia. We have a lot of poverty that at one point we felt that we were able to really take millions and millions of families out of poverty, but they were what we called the vulnerable middle class, because today they're coming back into that stage. And for the first time, we see a potential for Latin America to go back to one of the worst recessions that we haven't seen for over 50 years. We may be coming back into the very early 19th century recession levels. We see a whole set of indicators showing economic contraction of over 5% just in 2020 alone. We see a potential for losses over the next 5 years and a poverty increase in this year alone of over 4%, which will bring in about 30 million families into poverty. And one of the things that Latin America had almost extinguished was extreme poverty. And we already are in 2020 alone with over 2.5% of increase of extreme poverty. And this is another 16 million people in extreme poverty. So the question I have for us to look at is, as impact investors, what can we do and what have we done, and how do we go back and say, okay, how do we create this resilience that we so much have looked forward to in this region? When the COVID crisis coming in, things are going to, of course, become exacerbated. But if we look into what we have seen in Latin America over the last 5 years, we have seen social unrest over the last 2 years. We have seen a polarization of a political polarization, and seeing countries that do not operate together anymore. We've seen a region that has lost a demand for in a position for international trade, and we have seen a region that has lost remittances in larger scale. So it's a moment for us to say, okay, if we need to really get together and that we really need to get together and look into how can we change this structure, how can we change what we have been collecting in terms of data, how do we course correct so as we move forward we see a different reality. With the pandemic, things got twice as hard, if you will. Within the first month of the pandemic in Mexico, the Red Nacional de Refugios had a 80% increase of complaints against domestic violence. We've seen an economy that in Latin America, most of the economy is based on the informal sector, and these are folks that today will not be able to access any of the formal mechanisms for support for the crisis. We see Peru, for example, that was one of the first countries to find economic support for the small business, and we have 75% of the small business unable to access those funds because they haven't been formalized. And what we see is that, according to the CEPAL, because of the crisis, unemployment is going to get to a level of never seen in Latin America before. And in worst case scenarios, we'll have about 220 million people unemployed. So as impact investors, they are looking to bring the right levels of investments to a region, and are aiming to bring in the right types of financial returns, but also looking hand in hand of what the impact that we could do that would be long lasting. What I wanted to invite every one of you is to say, are we looking into the right indicators? And if we are collecting the right indicators, are we looking into the right outcomes? Why is it that 15 years later of impact investing, 40 years later after microfinance, 40 impact investors, $5 billion in the region. We see a region that is so vulnerable. So that's what I wanted to discuss and invite you all to share what you think that we could do together. But I think a conversation that is open, that is transparent, and in a way that celebrates all the things that we have achieved together as impact investors, but also allows for us to really course correct and utilize this crisis as a way for us to quemar etapas or really leapfrog into what we should have as a region. So that's the part of the conversation that I wanted to discuss with you, and I'll be happy to share a few things that we are doing differently at Mujer, but I wanted to stop here if it's okay, and then start seeing what kind of questions, what kind of comments, what kind of feedback you have for us to chat about this. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. And yes, the chat has been firing up with comments. Pilar says, thank you for the space, awesome insights for LATAM. And she asks, in Guatemala, where are you working? Are you investing in funds?
So in Guatemala, so ProMujer, when you talk about Guatemala, my heart, I really want to work very hard in Guatemala, and we haven't worked as much as I wanted with ProMujer. But in Guatemala, this is what we do. So ProMujer, we operate financial service companies. Some of them are microfinance, some of them are financieras or financing companies. And we operate healthcare clinics and healthcare referral systems. We also work with as a nonprofit and provide a lot of education and training and support to other organizations that are doing the work that we feel needs to be extended. So we sometimes work on this. And in Guatemala, we don't have operations, but we have worked with 3 organizations that support women and young adults. So we have worked with CERES, with Wakami, and there's one more that is going to escape me right now. And the idea is to provide education with Wakami, which is an organization that has been doing wonderful work in Guatemala with artisan women that work with crafts. And what we do is that we have worked with workshops on healthcare, workshop on digital literacy, and the same thing with CERES as well. CERES worked with a young population that we wanted to address digital inclusion very early on. We do hope to work more. And then there's another component of it, which is ProMujer has a few partnerships with impact investors, and we are partner with Dicton Impact, which is an impact investing fund out of Vancouver, Canada. And we have created the ILU Women Empowerment Fund. And we do invest throughout the entire region. And throughout the fund, we invest in Guatemala. And that fund specifically invests with a gender lens framework. And I will be very happy to talk about what we include on that, but that's what we do in Guatemala right now. Hopefully we will be working in Guatemala more actively very, very soon.
Thank you, Maria. And we have a lot of comments. Daniel Fuentes says, love this conversation, Maria. You're inviting impact investors to integrate system level considerations into their investment decision-making process and go beyond thematic approaches to investments. Love it. So that's a comment. And then Armando asks, Maria, can you comment how do you see the support or lack of it from governments to impact investing? Do you think the government's role plays a key factor in this new poverty increase in the region?
So I'll split the 2 questions, and I think that we need to sit down with governments, and now we have a much bigger voice. $5 billion of investment is not a small amount, and having a variety of investors from individual investors to corporate investors, family offices, high net worth individuals, foundations, and the multilaterals allows us for a stronger voice with governments. Now, unfortunately, our governments in Latin America and overall are not necessarily always strong and sometimes too politicized. So everything changes every other 4 or 5 years. And we need to then create the bridge to really bring in the government. But what I think we also need to do is to create the best practice for what we're looking for in the indicators that we're looking for in impact invest to become the status quo. It should be that the investors that we're looking at should have it. We should go beyond the SG, just a second, because we now need to look into how our community is being impacted, and we need to look into a larger scale. So governments play a role, and we should be able to have that bridge with governments, but we can count on the continuity of government policies when administrations change. And that's the part that I think we need to play that role. I think that more funds should be disbursed on that. And I think the government funds should come attached to the right levels of indicators that we're looking for. But I think at the same time, we need to look, how are we counting the poverty alleviation? The governments are doing that and we're looking at it, but are we even talking about the same language? So there is some work that we need to do. But today I feel that we are better prepared for that conversation because we have sizable funds and we have a broader base of investors that can sit down and then bridge that conversation.
Perfect, thank you. And I see a lot of questions from different areas or different countries in Latin America asking whether they fit in the investment scope of ProMujer. So specifically, they're asking if Suriname, Guyana, and French Guiana are also in your investment scope, as well as Honduras.
So we don't work in Suriname and Guyana, and it's our loss. So hopefully we'll get there. ProMujer is committed to support women, to really elevate women everywhere. So with that, I would say, hopefully we will be able to grow and get there very soon. From a perspective of investment, so we sometimes do, and we have a quasi-bank in Bolivia, we have a microfinanciera in Mexico. So we have some of the things that we operate, but we also are moving into this space as investors as well, because we feel that the position of ProMujer investments allow us to multiply our impact. And with that, and the partnerships that we're doing with Dictin, for example, or with Wilala in Mexico, allows us to really get to more companies. And with that, we have really invested in Honduras through the fund with the Ilu Empowerment Women Empowerment Fund, and hopefully we'll be able to invest in Suriname, in the Guianas, and hopefully we'll get to other countries in the Caribbean as well, which we haven't reached yet. But to open new operations, we are looking into what kind of differential we bring to that region and what kind of network is already there, because we don't want to be adding, we don't want to be redundant, since there are so many gaps. There are so many spaces for us to work throughout empowering women in Latin America. One of the things that we have done with ProMujer is that we have made a commitment that ProMujer has been always looking into an impact investing perspective, looking into the social impact, and poverty elimination has been one of the indicators that was very key to us. But we have decided to go beyond that. We feel that poverty alleviation alone has not supported the elimination of the patriarchy. We do want to have a very open, broad feminist agenda that looks into equality. And so we have decided that every partnership and every investment And every alliance that we make are looking into a gender lens approach. So we look into companies that may not be today, we don't eliminate, or we don't eliminate companies based on their ownership, or we don't just invest in companies that are women owned. We actually want to look into a broader base, but we look into companies today that have an interest to become champions of gender equality. So we're looking into companies that have and show a commitment for governance and leadership throughout the entire echelons of the company. So we want to see gender equality throughout, not just one woman as CEO and not really having a voice, or one woman on the board. We want to see workspace environment that leads to gender equality, that goes beyond just the HR policies, but it includes a lot of other things. And very important for us is to see women, children, girls and women being considered on product and services design, development, and sales. So we are looking into companies that are really considering that from the get-go. And the companies that are ready for that, we want to work with them so we can see that equality throughout. And then we also are looking into the supply chains of these companies and making sure that gender equality is also present on the way that they work throughout their supply chain.
Thank you, Maria. And we have two questions here. So one is from Maria Gabriela, who asks if you could share the Mexico's contact for Mujer, or who'd be the best person to reach out to. And then we have Armando asking, with COVID, is it more relevant to invest in women, gender lens investing, as a strategy for poverty alleviation?
Yes, so for Gabriela, if you go to our website, there is a contact from Mexico. The name of our contact in Mexico, we have a country representative. Her name is Natalia Willis. She's a fantastic woman, and I would say that is natalia.willis, W-I-L-L-I-S, @promujer.org. Otherwise, make sure that you send us a note and we'll get you in touch with Nati. And Armando, you're absolutely right. When we look into COVID, we see more than ever the importance of investing in women right now. And that has to do, women are the glue in their communities. This is the moment that women are already the caretakers, and unfortunately, many of them are unpaid caretakers, and that impacts the women more because they're now working twice as hard and not being compensated for that. So we need to look into that. But also, women reinvest in their communities in the levels of 98% of their own capital. So that's very key for us to really strengthen these communities. Women are research shows us that women are the ones that look into the health care of that family. May it be for the children, for the husband, for herself, and they manage that health care. So that's going to be even more important right now. And especially Latin American women are associated with the cleaning and the standards of hygiene in their families and where they work. So that's very important as well. But very important is that if we think about what we have today, so Latin America has about 8% of the world population. It's about 620, 630 million people. That's where we are. 40% of the cases of COVID today are in Latin America. We have not even reached peak in any of the countries. So if 8% of the population has already been affected, 40% of its own of the total count of the COVID crisis, and they're not reached peak, we can see that the crisis is going to get to a level that we haven't even been able to imagine yet. And when CEPAL or the World Bank says that we're going to see 5% contraction in this year, I think that we're going to see 5% contraction in 2020, and then we're going to see deeper levels of economic contractions in the next 5 years. So that means that more than ever, impact investing has to look into the social aspect, yes, but into the equality of that space, because in a lot of the time, women are the sole breadwinner in those families. They're not getting this access. They're also most likely the ones that don't have the name on a deed, or have not been fully bankerized, or they're also the ones that are in an informal segment. And in all these cases, it is much harder for them to access any support from government package. So I think more than ever, it's the time for us to invest in women. And I think that more than ever, it's important for us to invest in equality. And equality overall, when I talk about gender equality, I talk about women, men, and I talk about all the LGBT plus community that sometimes also is not put on the table and given the same space, the same rights. And that's what we're here from here. So I'm pushing the conversation with our impact investors friends to go beyond and say, if we're doing this and we think we're doing it so well, and it's been 15 years, our region should not be this vulnerable. Why is it that it didn't work? And we pro Mujer bet that inequality has been one of the things that we have not really looked into it very carefully.
Thank you, Maria. And I do want to be mindful of your time, because I do know that you have an upcoming meeting. So this will be the last question, and then I'll leave some time for you to wrap up with any final thoughts you may want to share with the audience. Ana Acosta asks, what are the key points on a post-COVID economy?
I think we're going to look into a new normal. So I was, I live in New York for over 30 years, and I was here during the towers, and we talk about the normal today, but the normal is a new normal, right? We don't travel the way we used to travel before. So we're scared about things that we were never scared about before, and we do things differently. So there will be a new normal. And I think more than ever, we need to look into how can we get closer and bypass the high cost of connectivity for low-income population. How can we address the underlying health problems of the low income classes in Latin America? Because these are the populations that are going to suffer. If you look into the victims of the crisis, the ones that already, with the countries that we already have seen, the victims are the minorities, are the underserviced that are going to go, they're really getting hit. I live in New York, and I live outside in Brooklyn, and looking into the levels and the indicators of deaths in the city. As you all know, New York City has been an epicenter of the crisis, and we see that is the migrant community, is the low-income communities, are those that do not have the opportunity to stay home working from a computer like we are doing it right now. These are the people that need to be cared for. These are the people that need to be given the tools to get to. And then sometimes they do have in Latin America, and some of our clients, for example, they have a smartphone today because the price of the equipment is getting lower, but the cost of accessing that is still too high. The level of the fact that they sometimes don't have the right levels of proper digital education, we need to look into that. The fact that 60% of underserved women in Mexico have diabetes puts them at risk in any of the crises. But COVID is just one more crisis. We need to look into other things. I mean, 2017, we had more than one earthquake in Mexico. In 2017, we had a volcano in Guatemala, and 2018 we had political unrest in Nicaragua, and then 2019 political unrest in multiple countries in Latin America. So we as impact investors, when we look into the social and the environmental, we need to see how are we really strengthening the communities that we are working for, and what is it that we can change so for the next 15 years, whatever other crisis that comes to us, these communities are stronger, independent of what kind of political administration we have on, because I think that we have been more of a continuum than any political administrations. So I think that there is a moment for us to see how much more we can do, how much more we have done, and it's just amazing. The fact that we have about 40 impact investment funds in Latin America is incredible. Now, is it more funds, or is it a different way of counting the indicators? Is it a different way of deploying these funds? Are we looking into the right things? So all of those things are things that I invite us to really discuss, so next crisis doesn't become another debilitating effect that brings Latin America back 50 years, like what we've seen and we're expecting that this crisis is gonna do. I think that if we're done, I see Rodrigo there, sending on my love to all of you, wishing you to be healthy physically and mentally, also appreciative of where we are, and appreciative of what a lot of people are doing. There's someone out there driving a bus, there's someone out there driving an ambulance, there's someone out there taking care of our family in hospitals, in morgues, in all kinds of spaces. So I think that there's a lot for us to do. I think we have done a lot. There's a lot for us to do. And at the same time, understanding how privileged we are, and being grateful for that too. So I'm grateful to all of you. The conversation is just the start. Please let us know if we can help in any way. I'm just wishing you the best. And it's wonderful seeing you, Rodrigo. Miss you.
Maria, thank you very much. I really want to say thanks to you, because you were the first one, the first plea. I remember when we started the plea conversations, probably almost 11 years ago. Maria was kind of the first person that said, yeah, I mean, so we're saying this crazy idea, let's do something to build a community of impact investing across Latin America. Maria was, at that time that she was working for Avina, she was the chief of strategy, and she got it right away, and she said, I'm in.
Look how much you've done since then. Amazing.
No, we have done a lot of things. So the plea was created with this idea of building the community. I mean, we never thought we were ended up talking by Zoom 11 years after. And we were trying to build a community, all the individuals working across the continent and impact investing said, like, we need to build bridges, we need to find ways to share experiences, share best practices, to get friends, do business together. And that was the first idea of the plea. And Maria was, I have to say that she was the first one who bought it, and she put a check without knowing what was going to happen. And thanks to you, we're here, Maria. We always appreciate that. Not just that first support, through the 10 years you have been always supporting in your different roles, and an inspiration for all of us. What you're doing now in Mujer is amazing, and it's always a privilege to have you here. Thank you very much.
It's a privilege.
Hope to see you
so
in the
much.
next 10 years. Let's see what happens.
First country will be Mexico. It's in my heart. Thank you so very much. I really appreciate it. It's been an honor, and it's a privilege, really. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maria. And I think Maria Arana Gastelum, I think we're all set. I don't know. Do you want to say something, Maria? Do you want to?
I'm just going to say goodbye because I have a board meeting that's starting.
You do.
Thank you, Maria Cavalcanti.
Gracias, Maria.
Gracias.
No, I think this is the official closing of this. I don't know if you wanted to say some words in español o en inglés. Todo tuyo.
Bueno, pues a las personas que quedan aquí les quiero agradecer mucho el que hayan estado. Vi muchas caras familiares, muchas caras que adicionalmente las vi en todas las pláticas. Tengo que decir que esto fue un experimento muy, muy interesante para nosotros. Tuvimos la fortuna del FLI, para los que hayan ido al FLI y los que no hayan ido al FLI, lo hicimos 10 años en Mérida. Es una conferencia que ha venido creciendo mucho orgánicamente. Tuvimos la fortuna de ser prácticamente la única conferencia durante el año que se pudo realizar físicamente en Mérida, con gran éxito. Y pues realmente sentíamos una responsabilidad con la comunidad de hacer algo más al ver que todas las conferencias se frenaron. Y al frenar estas conferencias, pues se frena todo el networking, se frena el business development, se frena la innovación. Entonces sentimos una responsabilidad como FLI de hacer algo. Y pues nos aventuramos a hacer este FLI y realmente de una idea a ejecutarlo fueron menos de 3 semanas, por lo que quiero agradecerle mucho al equipo porque la verdad es que contra viento y marea, estando cada quien en sus casas, María en España, con horarios diferentes, logramos montar un evento de primera calidad en tiempo récord. Realmente fueron menos de 3 semanas que pudimos montar una agenda, encontrar plataformas tecnológicas, tratar de innovar cómo íbamos a hacer la parte de networking para los que pudieron conectarse a los happy hours, la fiesta tropical de ayer. Realmente fue impresionante lo que la tecnología puede apoyar. Y para nosotros fue un aprendizaje. Espero que les haya gustado a todos ustedes. Les vamos a agradecer mucho sus comentarios, mucho sus sugerencias, qué les gustó, qué no les gustó, qué podemos mejorar. Nuevamente esto fue algo que lo hicimos sin saber mucho, lo hicimos con el corazón, con ganas de seguir ayudando a la comunidad y con ganas de innovar porque creemos que es algo que, como nos decía María, de la nueva normalidad. Creemos que por los siguientes años el vernos físicamente va a ser más complicado, entonces tenemos que encontrar maneras de que virtualmente podamos seguir compartiendo experiencias, haciendo sinergias, haciendo alianzas, haciéndonos amigos. Entonces, es lo que buscamos con el FLI. Esperemos que este piloto o este primer FLI at Home sea el principio de algo mucho más grande. Entonces, primero que nada, agradecerles a todos ustedes por el tiempo que le dedicaron a estar en una pantalla, por el tiempo que estuvieron haciendo preguntas, tratando de interactuar. También tratamos de usar la plataforma de Visavo para poder contactar por fuera a las personas o los asistentes del FLI. Muchas gracias y muchas gracias por los comentarios que nos van a mandar y su energía de participar. Y al equipo nuevamente, María, a las 3 Anas, porque tenemos 3 Anas en un equipo, pero Ana Gastelum, Ana García y Ana Nájera, realmente se la rifaron, como decimos aquí en México, hicieron una cosa increíble en tiempo récord. Les agradezco mucho porque le echaron pasión, energía y mucha creatividad a esto. Les agradezco mucho, es un equipazo y me siento orgulloso de tenerlas en el equipo, en el FLI y en New Ventures. Les agradezco mucho a todos y a todos los que nos escuchan. Esperemos vernos pronto. Estaremos como FLI, como New Ventures, buscando diferentes actividades, diferentes interacciones para seguir empujando la comunidad. El tema de inversión de impacto se necesita más que nunca. Necesitamos unir fuerzas, necesitamos apoyarnos en esta nueva normalidad, necesitamos aprender todos de uno, de lo que están haciendo, tejer redes y seguir trabajando. Lo necesitan las empresas, necesitan los problemas sociales ambientales y pues estaremos trabajando, poniendo nuestro granito de arena para que estas soluciones puedan llegar más pronto. Les agradezco mucho a todos y nos vemos pronto. Ojalá físicamente también en algún momento. Muchas gracias.